there has been a push to officially ban the Anti-Defamation League from the platform formerly known as Twitter, called X, and also all social media, by commentators who are just, in their opinion, fed up with the ADL's tactics. Indeed, hashtag ban the ADL has been trending as of the posting of this video for a while on Twitter, and it has really caused a lot of people to be passionate in regards to this particular matter. And people that want to ban the ADL, the proponents of this idea, claim that the ADL deserves to get banned because they are a harassment organization, they bully people, they argue for censorship under the auspices of protecting people, and that they are just not a good organization to have around because they are fundamentally antithetical to free expression. And while I certainly agree with all of those criticisms of the ADL, I do not believe banning them is the right way to go, and I'll explain why in a second. But before I do, allow me to make something exceptionally clear. This video is not a defense of the ADL. The ADL is a propaganda organization that operates under the veil of benevolence, that attempts to coerce American society towards their political ends by using the shield of identity to do so. They claim that everything, even mere dissent against the government of Israel, is anti-Semitism. But of course, dissent against a government is not hatred for a people or a kind of people, and yet the ADL routinely confuses this very concept and uses it to quash dissent. The ADL supports hate speech restrictions, in which any of us who are astute and understand what speech actually is and what free speech actually is understand that hate speech is a contradiction in terms. It's a coherency that makes no sense and should not be taken seriously. The ADL has bullied Elon Musk and has bullied Twitter, even going as far to say a few months ago that Twitter was on death watch for allowing dissenting voices to be let back on the platform. So believe you me, I have no love for this organization. Even many Orthodox Jewish conservatives, like Jerome Hazony, who I don't agree with on a lot of things, but who, even retweeted my sentiments on this, have no love for the organization. They represent the worst form of leftism. But having said that, just because I have no love for the organization, and just because they oppose free speech, does not mean I'm rushing to ban them. Beneath every political argument is a more fundamental claim, because I find that so many people stay on the surface when it comes to their politics and their philosophical and moral reasoning, and that is preventing our ability to have fruitful conversations that actually lead somewhere. And the more fundamental question beneath the push to ban the ADL is actually quite simple. Can a tolerant society tolerate the presence of intolerant people, especially at the risk of its existence? This question is called, in philosophy and in history, the paradox of tolerance. And people who support free societies have been grappling with this question for decades upon decades upon decades, trying to answer this. The paradox is something like this. If a tolerant society tolerates intolerant people, then in a sense, a tolerant society is allowing its existence to be threatened because intolerant people may one day get the reins of power, or they may act in their own capacities as intolerant people, and therefore the tolerant society is no longer just that, tolerant. But the other side of this is that the tolerant society bans intolerant people or attacks them, they're no longer a tolerant society. It's supposedly a paradox. And that's really the question, the fundamental question underlying the arguments against the ADL. If your argument to ban the ADL is that they are intolerant and they hate free expression and they're bullies, then you are essentially falling into one of the categories that might answer the question, should a tolerant society tolerate intolerance in just a different way? But I would propose to all of you who think deeply about this question that this is actually the wrong question to ask, because it makes a few presumptions that upon closer observation are not true. For example, when you ask should a tolerant society do something, you presume that society is this abstract collective unit that moves uniformly in one way. Many of us, anyone with common sense understands that society does not operate this way. And this presumption of society, so the sort of organistic presumption of society, that society is just this hive mind that moves a particular way, is fundamentally flawed conceptually because that does not actually exist in reality. What exists in reality is individuals interacting upon account of their values and upon account of their self-interest, sometimes one of those or both of them combined, it depends on the situation, towards certain ends. When you go to the grocery store and interact with the clerk at the counter, you are engaging in a form of society. When you comment on my comment section and you don't watch my whole video and you just say, Christian, you're wrong, not saying anyone in particular, that happens all the time though, you're engaging in a form of society. When you send a letter to your congressman, you're engaging in a form of society. When you go to work, you're engaging in a form of society. And the sum total of all of these interactions, which are millions upon millions of interactions that happen, create this image of this grand organism, when in all reality, it's really just micro interactions happening on a smaller level. And when you actually take this question further, the collective idea of society becomes even more absurd. Because let's ask the question a different way. Should a society of the Amish tolerate non-Amish people in their society? Well, the Amish are a closed people that prefer to be amongst people who share their own values, people who are raised in the tradition. So no one really asked this question. This is a little absurd. The Amish, like everyone else, have the ability to associate with whom they please. But if you view the Amish as just part of this broader organism called society, you can begin making these collective proclamations. The question is not, can a tolerant society tolerate intolerant people? Because you or I, in our personal capacities, in our everyday living of society, are not obligated to tolerate anyone for any reason, because you have the ability of free will, enabled by your ability of self-preservation, enabled by your humanity, to do as you wish. The real question is this, and this is what people are really asking and really hitting at when they scream, ban the ADL. Can a tolerant society allow intolerant people to become close or become in the halls of power and to use power in a way that's intolerant? That is the question. Because once again, this idea of the tolerant society presumes that it does not presume a separation between the government and civil society, between the public sphere and the private sphere. As I mentioned, the private sphere is fundamentally unique to everyone who exists in it. I know it's really hard to think about that because we've been conditioned so much in the West, or at least so much in America at least, to think in the Prussian model of education, which is that from Europe, these collective societies exist and we can analyze things on this. And there's so many areas of study built on these false ideas, like sociology and all that kind of stuff, and the social sciences, that basically proceed from these false premises. But we need to think correctly. So very simply, my friend, there's a crucial separation there. Government is not meant to be so entangled in society. But the fact is, it is. And the government particularly has politicized almost every single area of life, including social media platforms and the public agora by which many of us debate and speak. So the question about banning the ADL should not be a question about society. It's a question about the use of power, because the ADL has been so close to the power brokers in our society. They have a government liaison office in Washington in which they try to influence certain policies on the basis of their advocacy, and they also try to influence the policies of tech giants on the basis of their advocacy to restrict certain speech they find condemnable. And there are government agencies that quite literally use the rule books and the guidelines handed down by the ADL and other so-called civil society organizations, with an oxymoron, like the SPLC, to inform their policies. So this is a matter of power, not a matter of society. And the truth is this: no one that violates the first principles of any political system, especially our American system, should be anywhere near political power. And the issue of political power becomes so consequential because social media companies are effectively arms of the administrative state in Washington, D.C. in America. Or if you go over to Europe, of the EU, because you saw that EU privacy law and these data laws that they have, social media companies essentially answer to these governments. And not only that, but we found out through the Twitter files, and we've also found out through years upon years of revelation, that Facebook, that Twitter, all these different platforms are literally collaborating with law enforcement agencies, and they have been at a whim's notice. Perhaps Twitter isn't now, but still. So this is fundamentally a political question. And so, of course not. Intolerant people should not wield political power, which is why I personally don't think that everyone in America that wants to run for office, or everyone in America that wants to be close to power, should be allowed to be close to power. If you don't hold the values and the beliefs that made America the shining paragon of freedom and individualism and natural law and all these principles that it is today, you should not be, forget political power, you shouldn't even be an American. Americanism is not simply a line on the Census Bureau's data sheet, nor is it simply a designation given to you by the Customs Office. Americanism is a philosophy. And if you do not believe in the philosophy of Americanism, I have no problem, I don't care how old you are, revoking your citizenship and sending you to a country that fits your ideological needs. You want socialized healthcare? You can go over to Sweden, you can go over to Britain, you can go over to France, anywhere else that basically provide these systems by expropriation and can only do so because America pays their military bills for them. You want to have a collective view of society? You can go over to North Korea, over to China, where they absolutely love that kind of stuff. Americanism is a statement of principles, not merely a legal designation. And that's what we need to understand. So now, the ADL and their relationship with power is the problem. But let's also ask ourselves the last question before I close here. What principle has the ADL used to suppress speech and to encourage censorship within the halls of social media companies and the halls of power? They have used the principle of censorship for the sake of what they would call the public good. They would call it democracy. Now let me ask you this question. What tool are people that want to ban the ADL using to fix the ADL's fixation on censorship and bullying? They're using censorship and they're using bullying. And the justification of this comes down to this. They do it to us, so why can't we do it to them? Well, very simply, if you support free speech and you support the principle of free expression, and yet that principle of free expression is not working in your favor, I would wager you don't actually support free expression. Now the question becomes, Christian, what if free expression becomes dangerous to the freedom of a society? Again, this is a question of power. Because if there are people in power not willing to go along with the free expression that actually hurts freedom, there is no tangible effect on you beyond the actions of what private individuals can do in their personal capacity, which is not really a lot if they don't have power. A tyrant that simply has his own two hands and nothing else is not someone that is any more dangerous to you than a pesky neighbor who's annoying. But a tyrant that has the ear of Congress, the ear of the administrative state, the ear of the bureaucracy on their side, or the ear of the boardrooms of Twitter and Facebook, is a tyrant who can quite easily make his will manifest and known. But you don't blame free expression for this. You blame the fusion between power and private relationships, which has destroyed the ability for our society to function properly in the way that it should function. The ADL's brashness and their bullying is not a result of their free expression. It's a result of their incestuous relationship with political power and with social power that concentrates itself at the highest levels of these institutions. Banning the ADL is simply perpetuating the perversion of political power towards your own ends. And that's not a stable foundation upon which to create a society that values free expression. That is an unstable foundation which may work for you temporarily, but generally it is not conducive to finding the truth. Do not ban the ADL, rebuke the ADL, separate them from political power, and let their shame lay naked for all to see. That is the moral solution. The emotional solution is to simply get even. But let me tell you something, my friends. Getting even may feel good, but it leaves your integrity and therefore leaves your soul in a much worse state than it was before. If we had a society where everyone got even, we wouldn't have a society. We would have a state of perpetual war, perpetual conflict, and enmity, which is not conducive to flourishing human life. But if we have a society where people don't get even, but they get justice, that's a society that functions well, that can work well, and where evildoers and wrongdoers who use political power to their own ends have no standing. destroy the foundation that the ADL has to effect our policy by rooting the legitimacy through shame, by urging your congresspeople or urging your political organizations that you work through to not listen to them for their policy prescriptions, and by continuously demanding more from others who may sheepishly follow these organizations. If that happens, then you can circumvent the entire idea of banning, because they will fall before you can even blink. This answer may not be satisfying to all of you, but I'm sorry to say, sometimes the truth is inconvenient to what you believe. A majority of people on the right, if we look at the polls taken on Twitter, which they're not scientific, so of course we understand that this is not a reliable sample, but if we take them seriously, they don't agree with me. But that's okay, because sometimes the crowd is wrong. And what is right in this case is not ceding free expression because you see free expression being destroyed. Right? You don't destroy your car because someone decided to carjack it. You get the car back and you reorient it towards the right goals. We continue to hold on to free expression and we reorient it towards the right goals by using it to shame and righteously rebuke those who would seek to destroy the free society. That's how you handle the ADL. Do not ban them, rebuke them. My friends, like this video, comment on this video, share this video, subscribe to this channel. Be sure to also donate to my Patreon, my locals, my PayPal, my buy me a coffee. That's all in the comments down below. Join my Discord as well. I love you guys so much. Subscribe, put that notification bell on. Help with the revolution of the mind. I love you guys so much, and please stay pensive. Bye, everyone.